And welcome everybody to Between Rounds here on Heavy.com. I'm Ken Gonzalez along with my co-host here, the coach Shawn Tompkins, and of course Dave Heisa. You're all familiar with Dave from the radio show. Now you get a chance to look at it. So this is the huge UFC 113 preview show. First one on the docket here right now. Lyoto Machida, Mauricio Shogun Rua, the huge rematch. They fought in Los Angeles at UFC 104. Lyoto got the victory. I didn't really think he did. Shawn, you were there. You said that I was crazy, that he did. But, you know, Shawn, we're going to get to the technical side of it here in just a second. But, Dave, break this down. You know, what are we going to expect to see here?
Well, the bottom line here is, like you said, Ken, it was a very close fight. Whether we give it to Lyoto, we give it to Shogun, it was a close fight. But I think the most important thing here is that Shogun showed the first way to counter the karate of Machida, because previously every single guy that fought him was just dominated. But Shogun proved that he had the skills and he had the game plan that could work against the karate in the cage. And so this rematch is going to be pretty interesting.
Right, exactly. Now, Shawn, what exactly does Shogun have to do? What was that little piece that he didn't do the first time that's going to make a difference here?
Well, I think first and foremost, we have to look at what worked for him. And what worked for him was his leg kicks. Right. You know, the damage that he did to the legs of Machida, even sometimes changing it up to the body kick, you know, I think that's really what we've got to look at in this fight. He's got to go back to that. He's got to continue to pressure Machida. And I think really to make a change in this fight, we have to see a change in Machida. Before, Machida's that stylistically, that karate, that very traditional style that he does, that forward and back motion, but he generally runs and he doesn't box. And what we need to see is we need to see from him to come in and to be able to learn how to change it up and not just be that one style, but be able to change into a boxer or a kickboxer. Because we know Shogun's been doing this for a long time. He's very formidable on the ground. He's not scared to throw jump kicks, and he'll chase you down whenever the chance rises.
Right, and you know, one of the questions going in also, not just about the fight itself or the technicalities of the fight, but we look at the Anderson Silva fight, even some people say the George St. Pierre fight, a little bit lackluster. Is UFC going to be in a little bit of trouble if these guys come out and perform for 5 rounds and it's just a so-so game? Dave?
Well, if you saw the first fight, I mean, they went after each other. Lyoto ran a little bit, but I think it was the leg kicks that Shawn was talking about. But this time around, Shogun wants it. I think he's hungry, and I think that's going to be, he's going to push the pace of the fight, and I think that's going to be what it's going to take to win the fight for Shogun.
Right. I think that you've got to look at it from both sides of the table. First of all, when you're a fighter like Shogun, who it was so close he could have had that victory and that title, he could go back to camp and be remotivated and build and work harder, you know, and maybe come up with those little mistakes that he made that could have capitalized and made it all work out for him. You know, on the other hand, Machida's got to come back and say, listen, I can't just squeak by a victory again. I have to go out there and dominate. Obviously, every fight we've seen that's been in the championship realm lately has been a gamble for the UFC. Machida knows he's got to go out there, he's got to prove himself, and he's got to pressure Shogun.
Well, can Machida dominate Shogun? Is it possible?
I think that he's going to have to change his style to do it. If he goes out and he's the normal Machida that he's been, absolutely not. He's too defensive. He counterpunches too much. And Shogun's always going to be ahead of him. The crowd is going to want to see in this rematch, they're going to want to see a clean, decisive victory, not somebody running from another fighter and just outscoring him.
Now, you mentioned the leg kicks in the first fight. Do you think that that's going to be another key to success for Shogun this time around?
See, that's always a tough question, especially from myself as a coach's point of view, because I know that Shogun's probably saw that and knew that it worked for him, but at the same time Machida has went home and said, okay, where did I lose this fight? Well, he lost the fight on leg kicks. So he's going to probably be working on how to capitalize on defending the leg kick, timing the leg kick, and just finding a way to get away from it. So I think that still it's going to be a factor in the fight because that's always been one of Shogun's biggest weapons. But I'm sure that the Machida is going to also have a way to capitalize on going against it.
And how do you counter those leg kicks? I mean, it seems like everyone's been landing them lately in MMA. It's such an important part of the game. It's such an important part of the keys to having success. What does he need to do to not get hit by so many?
Well, he's got to learn how to block the leg kick, you know, and not just take it, not just run from it. in order to get somebody to stop kicking you in the leg, you block it, because a shin-to-shin strike hurts.
Right.
And if you have that pain, mentally you're not going to throw it as often.
Absolutely.
And I really think that Machida's going to have to add that in his defensive arsenal.
Definitely.
Now, obviously, Shogun had a reputation before he came to the UFC. The first fight he had was a bit lackluster. Is this the Shogun of before? Is Shogun, has he arrived finally?
I think that after seeing him in his last couple fights, he's slowly getting to the Shogun that we knew from the Pride days. He had a rough start, but I see him actually transferring into the UFC better than most fighters have. You know, he's found himself. He's found that aggressive Pride style that, you know, we all have learned to love.
And I think what also was a problem for Shogun in the beginning, other than, you know, fighting off some injuries, was he had to deal with the rule changes. He was used to having, he could do soccer kicks, he could do all these things that in America or in MMA here, you're not allowed to do. So that being said, it took him some time to transition into the game, and I think that now that he's got that down, that also has brought him back to the level he was at.
Right. Agreed. Yeah, no, I mean, let's just look at the history of, you know, from Pride fighters moving into the UFC that are in the same, we're in the same camp that Shogun rolled with, and the shoot box, and most of their victories came from soccer kicks or head stomps. You know, you take that out of their game, and you know, now we have to see a Shogun that's transferred into the Shogun that the UFC really needs and that we deserve.
When we come back, right here in Between Rounds, we're going to discuss Josh Koscheck with a victory. Might he have to face one of his buddies? So we'll find out when we come back right here on Between Rounds. And welcome back, everybody, to Between Rounds here on Heavy.com. We're talking UFC 113, which is this Saturday, May the 8th, at the Bell Center in Montreal, Canada. We've had some fun times in Montreal. We've been there a few times. You know, it's a good town. Good to go back to Canada, right?
Great to come back to Canada. In Montreal, I've spent a big part of my fighting career up there, and I got a lot of fans, a lot of friends in Montreal. I can't wait to get back there and see them.
Dave met a lot of friends last time in Montreal, too, so you can say so.
I did, for sure.
When you go to Canada, you're going to meet a lot of friends. I mean, that's the Canadian people. That's the way it is there.
That's where they are. They're Canadian.
They're known for being nice?
Yeah, they're known for being too nice.
All right, so last segment, we wrapped up the Shogun Machida fight. Now we want to talk Josh Koscheck, Paul Daly, and, you know, the intriguing thing about this fight, of course, is if Koscheck wins, would Dana White want to now pair his next fight with John Fitch? So, Dave?
Well, I see it as it's either a #1 contender bout, so he either gets the title shot with a victory, or it's, if not, he's definitely got to fight someone like a Fitch. He's got to be up there to get the #1 contender bout. But I really think at this point, this fight will be for who fights George St. Pierre next. I just don't see how else it could be anything else.
Well, Shawn, well, yeah, I mean, a #1 contender fight, I think maybe makes more sense than giving him the title shot right away.
Well,
again.
Yeah, I mean, and especially Dana White's been talking about it forever, about how it's time that fight camps are going to have to go against each other. Right. You know, so with the Koscheck versus Fitch, it's going to make a lot of sense if it's coming from Dana's talk. Now, my biggest thing is I don't think anybody should look past Paul Daly.
Well, that's what I was.
And I think, personally, I think it's a horrible matchup for Josh Koscheck. You know, I think
he's a strong guy.
I think he's a strong guy. He has great takedown defense. And let's face it, he's probably, I think, the most dynamic striker in the UFC.
Right.
If he puts his hands on Josh Koscheck, who has been knocked out before, he's knocking him out again.
Now, for Koscheck, why does it seem that he's abandoned his origins? Why does it seem that wrestling is just not even a factor of his game anymore when, especially in this fight, I think the only way he does have a chance of winning this fight is if he goes back to those roots and he sticks with the wrestling and he takes Daly off his feet, where Daly's the most vulnerable.
Right. Well, I mean, if history proves itself, Josh Koscheck isn't going to do that, though. You know, and I think that Koscheck has kind of fallen into that idea, and he's even said it himself, that he's not necessarily chasing a title. He's more chasing big fights. Right. He loves MMA, he loves to fight, and he wants to beat guys at their own game.
Right.
Big mistake when it comes to Paul Daly. Paul Daly, anyways, I think, like I said before, has great takedown defense. Koscheck, don't get me wrong, is probably one of the best wrestlers in the UFC. Used to be, anyways.
Right.
We haven't seen it in a while. But Paul Daly, he could stop a takedown, and like I said, he puts his hands. If Josh wants to trade with him, bad guy to trade with. He's traded with great stand-up guys. I mean, I've seen him fight guys like Dwayne Ludwig, who's 10 times the striker that Josh Koscheck will ever be, and make him look like it was his first day in kickboxing.
Right. Well, since coming to the UFC, Paul Daley is 2-0 with 2 knockout wins over Dustin Hazlett, Martin Kampmann, 2, I mean, tough fighters at that. So Paul Daley, some may say, well, if this is a #1 contender bout, you're getting it kind of early. Well, maybe not. He's taken out the top competition, and this against Josh Koscheck, it makes sense.
Absolutely, it does. And we got to look at, you know, maybe in the UFC, we don't know a lot about him, but I mean, I've looked before. I think the kid's had close to 28 professional fights.
Absolutely.
And a lot of those fights were wins, a lot more than losses.
Exactly.
So,
well, you know, for Daley coming into this fight with the hint of underdog, you know, to him, not many people are going to look to Daley to win this fight. Does Koscheck have enough in his camp to switch things around to prepare himself properly?
I think that Josh Koscheck, has that the options in his camp. Absolutely. Do I think he'll use them? No, I just don't see it. I don't see him changing up anything that he's done for the past 2 or 3 fights. He's going to be the same Koscheck we've seen, and if he wins, he's getting lucky. If he doesn't win, he's getting taught a lesson.
Well, I mean, that's the way it goes, right?
Absolutely. I think that for Koscheck, I mean, I think his biggest weakness is that mentality, is that confidence. No matter who he's fighting, is that he's going to beat them at their game. And it comes a point when you got to be professional. You got to do what it takes to win a fight if you want to continue to be successful in the UFC.
Right. Well, the next fight that the coach might know a little something about, Sam Stout. Favorite in Canada, of course. The last time in Montreal, the crowd went nuts. You guys were vaulted to like the co-main event practically, I think, on that one. How's it going?
I mean, camp has been great, and it's I've told people this all month. We're very fortunate that every camp for the last 3 we've been able to say was better than the last. Not too many people get to say that. We've been gifted with the new training center, training at the Tap Out Training Center in Las Vegas. We have a team of 24 fighters, some of the best in the world. And, you know, as always, I brought in some of the, you know, key guys that I think are going to make a difference in Sam's training to beat a guy like Jeremy Stephens, a guy that we've respected and wanted to fight for a really long time. We know he's tough. We know he bangs. And, you know, we asked for this fight, you know, and we thank the UFC for giving it to us. We're in Montreal, which is basically Sam Stout's hometown. And we're going to go out there and hopefully put on a clinic. And, you know, I know the fans want to see it. We don't like to look that far ahead. But fight of the night is always a great chance when you got a guy like Sam Stout in there.
Absolutely. Now, training Sam for this fight, you're fighting Jeremy Stephens, who he's a banger, like you said. And he's going to go out, and he's very much, he reminds me of like a Leonard Garcia. He goes out and he throws big bombs, big strikes, and he tries to knock you out with every punch. I mean, is the key to this, like you said, is it just to be more technical and to just pick him apart?
Well, I mean, that's going to be a big part of our game, being more technical than he is, using our range, our distance, and our movement. I think where people go wrong with Jeremy Stephens is they forget about the fact that he's not a bad wrestler.
Right.
And if you watch the Joe Lauzon fight, who we watched previously because we're preparing for him, if you watch it on the opposite side to look at Jeremy Stephens, he went for just as many submission attempts as Joe Lauzon did.
Right.
So, I mean, we're not overlooking that. We also know that he hits hard. Why? Because he's very strong.
Yeah.
And we have to keep that in mind. He is dangerous at all times. Jeremy Stephens believes in himself. And if history repeats itself, fighters that believe in themselves are dangerous fighters.
No, obviously everybody knows Vitor Belfort, coached here by Shawn Tompkins. Vitor's career is going well. You know, he's going to be coming back from the injury. But now you've got Sam, and every fight now for Sam is becoming bigger and bigger and bigger. You know, where does Sam see himself right now?
Well, we're not looking ahead too far. You know, people have been calling me, we've been talking to media all over the world. You know, is he going to be in the running? Is he going to be in that title contention? A guy like Sam Stout, we've never been in a rush with. And I think that's why we're in this good position right now. We slowly build him. He's young, he's exciting, and he's quickly learning the game of mixed martial arts. Right. He's not just a kickboxer anymore. And we need that with a guy like Sam. We're in no rush. The UFC loves him. He loves the UFC. And he's getting better and better every time. Jeremy Stephens is a good step. He's a good challenge. And we'll go from there.
Right. Right. No, I mean, it's going to be a great fight. I mean, I think so. Moving on, another Canadian, is on this card. Patrick Cote, who again was battling a knee injury. Has he actually fought since then?
I don't think. No, he hasn't.
I don't believe
This will be his first
This is his first fight,
yeah.
and nearly a year and a half, I believe, for Patrick Cote, and picking Alan Belcher. I mean, this could be a tough fight for him.
Absolutely. I mean, Alan Belcher surprised us with Dennis Kang. Yeah. There was a fight that he was in over his head. You've got a guy like Dennis Kang that came out of Japan, was submitting all the top submission artists out there. And Alan Belcher came out and he submitted Dennis Kang after completely controlling the entire fight.
I think that for Alan Belcher will be the place where he can win. We know both guys can stand and trade. We know both guys are very technical on their feet. But that X factor, I think, for Alan Belcher is he has the ability to go to the ground, and when he's on the ground, he knows what to do, and he can finish the fight. Right. And for Cote, that's what I'd be most worried about. Yeah,
I have to agree. I think Belcher, even in the stand-up game, I think has more to offer because he's a kickboxer. Right. Where Cote has shown us in the past, he's a heavy-hitted puncher with a little bit of anti-wrestling. And I think in this fight, I think that it's going to be Alan Belcher's night. It's going to be another step for Alan. Really? So you're looking for Alan Belcher to come out on this one? Yep. Hometown crowd isn't going to sway Patrick Cote? No, and I think Cote's been out of commission for a while. Right. You're out that long. You've got a guy like Alan Belcher who's on a roll, coming off a huge fight, and showing us that he can do more. Right.
And it's not like they gave him, some of these guys that come off injury, they give him a tomato can or something to warm him up. They're throwing him right in the fire.
But they can't do that with Patrick Cote because his last fight, even though he got hurt, was a title shot. Right. So, I mean, they can't throw him against a tomato can. They have to actually continue to test him. If he was worthy of that title shot, he's got to prove it by taking out big guys when he comes back.
Absolutely, 100%.
Sure. All right, there's one last fight that we've got to talk about that's on the pay-per-view card. And what fight would be complete without Kimbo Slice and Matt Mitrione? I mean, you're going to have to dissect this thing. I think the poor man would have to say, well, Mitrione probably has more skills going into this fight than Kimbo Slice.
Man, I look at it as they're very equal in this fight. What I saw from Mitrione from the Ultimate Fighter show was a guy that can take a hit. And maybe that comes from his days in the NFL, but I mean, it's going to take a lot to knock that guy out. And a guy like Kimbo Slice, he loves to throw those big shots. He has been tested. His chin in the past has been questionable. So for Kimbo, I think the key for him is to not get hit by a big shot, is to keep his hands up, definitely, and just do what he does. Because eventually, with a guy like Mitrione, who seems pretty green in the sport, that could be the only way you're going to win, is just keeping it going.
I'm going to have to look at this fight as like this fight they finally put together a Kevin Ferguson, Kimbo Slice fight where we know it's going to be a stand-up fight. Right. First of all, he's fighting a guy, Matt Mitrione, who is much taller than him. Right. Taller guys don't shoot on shorter guys. Right. So he's not going to try to take the fight to the mat. So we're going to have that chance to actually see them come against each other and throw punches and kicks. Where I think the difference again, is that speed and that distance and that height that Matt has. And I think he's going to be able to use that long jab. I don't think he's going to be in a rush with a guy like Kimbo Slice. And I think he's going to pick him apart until Kimbo falls down. We've seen Kimbo go down to not probably the heaviest punch in the world. When he fought, what was it, Seth Petrozelli. So I think that Kimbo Slice is a huge draw. I think his time in the UFC will be extended because he is Kimbo Slice. But I think Matt Mitrione is going to have a chance to kind of bring himself into the limelight.
Does Matt Mitrione then have a chance to become a real UFC fighter?
I don't know if I'm sold on that because I also saw some things in the show that maybe weren't that portraying of an elite athlete, I guess. And, especially when it came to his emotional side and his mind control, he seemed to have some weaknesses there. Mind you, it is the Ultimate Fighter TV show. And I've trained many of those guys, and you can't always believe everything you see on TV. So I don't know. It's going to take more than beating Kimbo Slice to sell me on him.
Right. All right, so UFC 113 in Montreal should be a very good fight card, a good pay-per-view. Everyone should run out and sign up and get it.
Don't miss it. I think it's pretty much sold out to go and see it live. So.
Yeah, I think all three in Montreal sold out like within hours.
Those Canadian fans, man.
Exactly. So when we come back, Sam Stout will be with us. So we'll talk to him, see how the training was going, and we'll be right back on Between Rounds here for Heavy.com. All right, welcome back to Between Rounds here on Heavy.com. And as we said, we got Sam Stout, UFC fighter, sitting between Dave and I. And Sam, you're going back to Montreal.
Back to Montreal yet again.
It is. It's your home court.
Yeah, it's pretty much like my home away from home. I've considered it to be that way for a long time now. I started up my pro MMA career there, and it's always nice to go back.
Exactly. And your opponent this time, they seem to be getting a little tougher and tougher for you, right?
Well, that's
that the goal?
That's the way it works. You got to keep fighting and keep improving and fighting better and better opponents and working your way up that ladder. So that's what I'm trying to do.
The last segment, Shawn talked about how you don't ever look past a fight or anything like that. And I don't want to do that. But your career in general, are you pleased with where you're at and how it's going and how it's progressing?
Definitely, definitely. I started in the UFC at a pretty young age. I did my first fight back in 2006, and at UFC 58, I was 21 years old. So, I've had some ups and downs in my career, but, I'm young enough that I can take them as learning experiences and grow from them. And luckily, I've been able to keep my spot in the UFC, I'm paying the same dues as a lot of guys, but only I'm doing it on a bigger stage. So that's the way I see it, and I think it's working out well for me.
Right. Now, going into this fight with Jeremy Stephens, as a fighter, fighting a guy that you have to be constantly worried about his knockout power. I mean, does that change anything going into the fight? Does that bigger concern than a guy like Joe Lau's on your last fight, who's a submission guy? I mean, not dealing with that.
It's not that I'm any more concerned about Jeremy Stephens than I was Joe Lauzon or one of my other opponents. It's a different type of concern. I got something different to worry about, and me and Shawn have been working on that together. On a different game plan. There's always dangers in that cage, and this time it's just a different danger than the last one.
Right. Now, obviously both of you guys have the expertise in the striking, but for you it's more technical striking, it's more crisp. Do you think that is definitely, if it does stay on the feet, that's going to be the key, is just picking him apart?
Yeah, I definitely think in this fight with me and Jeremy, it's going to be, I have a feeling it's going to come down to striking, and what I think it's going to come down to is technical striking versus power punching. And hopefully my speed and my technical ability will allow me to prevail in this fight over his raw power.
Definitely.
Sam, talk about this weight division, in the UFC. Do you consider it one of these divisions where there is absolutely no room for error whatsoever?
Definitely. Well, there's always a little bit of room for error. MMA is a pretty forgiving sport, but it's a very interesting time in the lightweight division right now with Frankie Edgar stealing the title or taking the title away from BJ. It really changes the face of the whole division, because now it's very difficult, to say who's the #1 guy. Is it still BJ Penn? Is it Frankie Edgar? Is it Gray Maynard who's beat Frankie Edgar? It's tough, and it really opens up a lot of doors, and I think it's really going to be interesting to see how this division plays out in the next few months to a year.
Right. How surprised were you with that victory for Frankie Edgar?
I was, I did not pick him to win that fight. I did not pick him to win that fight. But you got to give the guy credit. I don't think I've seen anyone come in with as smart of a game plan to fight BJ Penn. He stood and kickboxed with him and wore him down, and once he did wear him down, that's when he went for the takedowns. We've seen other guys who, on paper may even be better fighters than Frankie Edgar, that have just come in and not come in with the right game plan to fight BJ Penn. He's not a guy you can press up against the cage or take down with a single leg. You got to wear him down, and then you got to shoot that power double. That's the only way you're going to get him down, and that's, and Frankie Edgar fought a brilliant fight against him.
Right. Now, speaking of the mind of a fighter again, do you think most guys beat themselves when they face like a champion like, per se, a BJ Penn before they even get in there? Do you think they're beat as they're walking to the cage?
I think it happens sometimes, but I think that's one of the challenges of being a high-level fighter. You have to learn to, it's kind of a cliche thing to say, but it's really 90% mental. This sport, if your head's not in the right place, you've lost before you've stepped in the cage. Right. So a big part of it is going out there with the right mentality and, you know, not overthinking things and just trusting in your training, trusting in your coaches, trusting in yourself.
Right.
Now that the bullseye is on Frankie's back as opposed to BJ's, do you think there could be a tendency for some fighters in the division to say, oh, now wait a minute, maybe there is a chance here that I can take this? I mean, that's a dangerous approach to take. Right?
Yeah, definitely. You know, there's a lot of guys, you know, he's got the title right now, and you know, there's a lot of guys that may not have been the best matchup to fight a guy like BJ Penn that, you know, are just stylistically it matches up much better, and that's one of the interesting things about MMA is, you know, styles make fights. So if you get a champion who has a different style than, you know, the past dominant champion like BJ Penn, then you know, it opens up a whole lot of doors for a lot of guys.
Well, to get back to your fight, what kind of doors do you think will be open with a win over Jeremy Stephens? I mean, if you could play matchmaker, where would you put yourself in the division after a win?
You know, to be honest with you, I haven't really even thought about a next opponent after Jeremy Stephens. I think that's you know, kind of an arrogant thing to do is start thinking about stuff like that before you've you know, I'll cross that bridge when I get to it. But exactly. You know, in terms of my career, I'm ready to just you know, keep stacking wins and keep you know, fighting the guys that the UFC wants me to fight.
Absolutely.
Don't worry about Dave. He's always trying to air, you know, get people to air the dirty laundry and you look 4 or 5 fights down the road. You know, that's what he wants you to say. You know, he'd probably like you to say there's some 16-year-old kid right now that's wrestling in high school that you're going to fight in 5 years. But, you know, you mentioned the fact you come into the UFC at a very young age, and, you know, not only fighting-wise, but attitude-wise, you know, there's a lot of growth. You know, Team Tompkins now with Vitor and yourself, I mean, do you also feel a sense of responsibility to Team Tompkins?
I think I'm one of the you know, I'm one of the main ambassadors for Team Tompkins. I've been here, you know, really for a long time training with Shawn since he started training guys for MMA. I've been training with him, and you know, even before that with kickboxing and you know, he's not only my coach but he's my brother. So I know I got to represent him well and all my teammates well because they're, you know, they're all like brothers to me. So anything that I do reflects on them.
Right. All right, Sam. Well, we appreciate you taking some time. You were doing a little training on it.
Sorry I came in so underdressed.
Contraption over there. What do you call that? I've never seen something.
I don't even know what it's called. It's just a resistance, you know, resistance pulley system that makes it a little more difficult to do a lot of exercises.
Oh yeah, the hardest part looked like just putting it together. Yeah. You know, I don't even know how they do that.
It takes a little time to get all hooked up in there.
Exactly. I think people could go to the website here or Team Tompkins and they can actually check you out.
Yep.
Working on that thing.
Watch some of our training secrets there.
Yeah, exactly. Air it after the fight. But we appreciate you coming on. Obviously, best of luck in Montreal next weekend. We'll be out there and we'll be cheering you on, definitely.
Thanks for having me.
All right, Sam Stout, everybody, with the UFC. We'll be right back here in Between Rounds for Heavy.com. All right, welcome back to Between Rounds here for Heavy.com, and another guest. We got John Gunderson, UFC fighter, here with us, who traveled all the way to Abu Dhabi at UFC 112 and was unable to fight due to his opponent, correct?
That's true.
What happened?
From what I understand, he just may have cut too much weight, wasn't feeling good, and was up all night with migraines. And the day of the fight, about an hour and a half before the fight started, we were on the bus to the arena, and they pulled Shawn Tompkins, my coach, off.
But now that was a little like scary, right? I mean, people are like, why are these officials pulling Tompkins off the bus?
There was only 2 things I could think of at the time. The first thing that came to mind was that 2 of my buddies there was 4 of us in the room, and 3 of the guys had gone across the street at a little pool party and threw one of the princes in the pool, having a little bit of fun. Oh, so that was the one.
That was the one thing.
That was the first thing that, because we were, you know, obviously in Abu Dhabi, so didn't know if they were going to chop our heads off for that or what was going to happen. And then, of course, the other thing was, you know, maybe something happened at home with my family. Those were the only 2 things I thought of.
Right. On the way to the fight, exactly. Yeah, you would think anything that had to do with the fight would have been taken care of already.
I already seen him at weigh-ins. I thought everything was good to go. Right. And Shawn comes on the bus a couple minutes later and tells me, you know, the fight's off. So.
Well, but then it's on again now, right?
Yep, it's on again.
They've just announced that you'll fight Paul Taylor at the Ultimate Fighter finale at the Palms, June 9th, I believe?
June 19th.
19th. And, I mean, what do you do? It's like, do you go back to the drawing board and start all over, or what do you do?
In my opinion, it's better for me now because now I don't have to travel. I live here in Vegas. I train here in Vegas. He's got to travel a lot further than he had to Abu Dhabi.
Right.
He's got to cut the weight again. So, and he's got to deal with not showing up last time. I showed up, I was ready to fight.
Exactly.
So it's the same game plan, and he just gives me another 2 months to prepare for him. So.
Right.
Especially given the fact that you traveled all the way to Abu Dhabi for that fight, what was it like? I mean, obviously it was a disappointment, but I mean, as a fighter, it's game day, it's time to go. What is that like to find out fights off like that?
I don't even know how to explain that. You know, I don't know. It was like I was blowing up a balloon for about a year, and all of a sudden someone walked by and popped it. I was ready to go. I was mentally and just set to fight, and to find that out, it was a big letdown because, I mean, I got my money, but that's not where I really wanted to go there. I wanted to go there to fight, and every man and every fighter has a legacy to set of his own, and that was one step towards mine. So I'll get to redeem myself and come back here and show what I can do on the 19th of June.
Well, as far as your experience in Abu Dhabi, obviously it was a disappointment without being able to fight, but what was it like there?
I didn't like it. I wouldn't want to go back. I didn't like it at all. It was hot, and I was going there to fight, so I didn't get to experience anything. I didn't get to travel and have a lot of fun around there. I don't know what the city looks like. I just know there's a lot of buildings that are not completely built, and a lot of money being wasted there. But
well, now speaking of which, was it before or after the fight was canceled that you got your laundry bill?
It was before. I think it was probably 3 days before.
Really? So it was just one thing after another then?
Yes, it was.
What exactly happened? You go to get your laundry done, and you find out?
Well, it's half me and my training partner's fault. We need to get some laundry done. We've been there, we're spending there, I think 8 days there. So, of course, you don't bring everything that you need. You need to get some laundry done. So we looked at the list, and we were like, we'll see what we can do. Right. And when one of the ladies walked by that works there, and we were like, hey, can we get this laundry done? We couldn't understand what she said. She couldn't understand what we said. So we thought we were getting one over on her. Right. We were like, yeah, do it. Cheap, give us a good deal.
Right.
So we were, thought it was a good deal. And the next day, they bring the laundry all pressed and folded, and all it was workout clothes.
Right.
$5 shirts, and they bring it back, and they came out to $250.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, 800 and something dirham is what it.
So you would have done some shopping instead.
Yeah, and we did everything we could to try to get it cheaper, but
no one was having it. No.
we thought we could talk our way out of it, but it didn't.
Try to give the bill to Dana White?
No, definitely not.
Not at all.
Yeah.
All right, John, well, obviously we're going to look forward to the fight that we were going to see. I think you're right. I think you might have the advantage here mentally anyway because of the fact that he's going to be coming off some issues and he's got a long way to travel. We'll be at the Ultimate Fighter, so hopefully we'll get you on maybe that week and get you back here and get your thoughts before the fight.
Sounds good.
All right, John Gunderson, UFC fighter. We'll be right back here in between rounds for Heavy.com.